Hi guys, I'm Lainey and I'm going to be starting a series on my channel to document my study abroad journey, adventure, whatever you want to call it, and this is going to be the first one. So first I wanted to go over kind of my study abroad story, I guess you could say. So I'm an international business major, so studying abroad has always been something that I was going to do because it is required for my degree. However, I did not plan on doing it this soon because I found out in March that I would be graduating a year early, which meant that I would be studying abroad a year early as well because I play soccer at my college, and so I'd always planned to study abroad my last semester since I play in the fall. And so that just pushed everything forward in March for me to where this summer I was really cracking down on finding my program because the deadlines for spring of 2023 are this September, and so that meant I had 4 months to come up with where I wanted to study abroad, how to fundraise that money for it, and if it was something that I could even get done at that point. So at my school there are two options you can use to access study abroad. The first is using a partner school. So my university partners with other universities all around the world, and they kind of equally switch students back and forth, and with that you would pay your home university's tuition. It is very limited the amount of schools that there were offered for me. I definitely knew I wanted to go to Europe for my study abroad, and a lot of the schools were in Asia and Central and South America, and so that really limited me down. The school I was looking at that was offered in Europe was in the Czech Republic, about 30 minutes outside of Prague, and for a really long time I had my heart set on that. I was like, you know, I'm gonna love it, it's gonna be great, because I kind of saw it as my only option. But after talking it through with my parents, I realized that I didn't want to settle just because it seemed like my only option at the time, even though there was a whole other world of options if I went through our second use to study abroad, which is the ISEP program, which is a website that connects you to all sorts of study abroads all around the world, and they exchange with, you can do an exchange or you can do a direct. And so with the exchange, like I started to say, you can exchange with their students. So when they have a student decide to study abroad, that opens a spot that you can take at their university. And with the exchange route, you would pay your home university's tuition, and you would get meals a lot of times as well as put up in a dorm. And then the second route you can take on the ISEP program is direct. And with direct, you would pay the host university's direct tuition, which typically is quite a bit more than a United States university's tuition, but that guarantees your placement. Whereas on the exchange, it's really dependent on if that school you're wanting has exchange students coming out as well. And so once I decided to go that route and use the ISEP program, I really realized that there was so much more out there, and I didn't feel quite as settled into a school. And so I looked everywhere, because when I decided to study abroad, I had no idea where to go. I just knew I wanted to study abroad. I wanted to get those cultural experiences. I wanted to leave the United States and see what was out there. Traveling has always been something that intrigued me, and study abroad is a great way to do that, especially as a college student. And so my options were pretty much endless. So through that website, I went through and used their program finder, and the only filter that I put in was Western Europe, European countries. And I looked through hundreds of schools, reading about each one, reading their biography, what language they mainly spoke, what courses and classes you could take. I looked at where they were located based on is it going to be hard to travel out of there? Is it going to be cold? Is it going to be hot? Is it changing temperatures? Is it always hot? Is it always cool? Climate, things like that. Read through hundreds and hundreds of school, and I came across a school in Milan, Italy. It's Sacro Cuore. It's a private Catholic school, and I fell in love. The idea of Milan alone just, grabbed me. I started looking on social media like TikTok, Instagram, and finding other students that had studied abroad in Milan, and just fell in love with the experiences they seemed to be having. So I looked even deeper into the school and found that I could take any classes I wanted. Now, some people may be confused if you haven't ever looked into studying abroad, because you're like, why wouldn't you be able to do that, especially coming from how it is here. You can just take what you want. Like, yes, you have major specific courses, but I could go up and decide to take a yoga class if I wanted. Well, from what I found on my study abroad research, at least in Europe, is that a lot of the schools, once you declared like your major, your degree, what your like degree path was, you stayed there. So for me, I'm international business. I would take only business classes. I wouldn't go outside the business school at all, which is great if you still have like your junior, sophomore, whatever, have credits to fulfill. But I will be a senior when I'm studying abroad, and I actually will have had all of my required credits fulfilled. The only credit that I'm left to fulfill is the study abroad itself. So for me, I wanted to be able to take that semester and use it to travel and have a fun and easy semester, and having to take business classes and classes that are going to be harder isn't bad, but it's definitely not. If I could get around it, I wanted to. And so at the Sacred Girl School, I found that you could take whatever classes you wanted. They had like a cultural one where you can get to like try different foods and drink different wines. They had like a luxury business, of course, basic Italian, lots of different classes like that that really intrigued me and helped me to fall in love with the school as well. So after I found the school in Milan, Italy, I had to then find backup options because, like I said, it is all dependent on the amount of exchange students that are coming out of the school that you're wanting to attend. And so the way the ISEP program works is you have to have at least three choices of schools, so that if you can't get your first, you can get your second and your third, and so on. So like I said, I had really no preference in where I was going outside of Europe, and so I started to look for schools that were similar to the one in Milan because I did fall so deeply in love with it. I didn't want to be disappointed when I didn't get it, so I wanted to find schools that I thought had similar characteristics to it. And so a lot of it was just like narrowing my search down to Italy, seeing is that wise, is schools in Italy that are like this, things like that. But then also I did open my search up to Spain because all the other schools in Italy were in smaller towns, and the size was a bigger factor in it than I thought it was going to be. I go to school in a smaller but decent sized city. I come from a small town, so I never thought that going on my study abroad in a small town would bother me. But as I looked and did more research, I really decided that I wanted to be in a city for my study abroad and really experience that part of Europe and European culture. And a lot of the other schools that I could study abroad at in Italy were in smaller towns. So I decided to open my search up to schools in Spain as well. And the reason I did this is because I do speak Spanish. I was supposed to be getting my Spanish certificate, but decided not to. So I'm pretty close to being fluent. My biggest regret is that I was never able to use my Spanish, and so I thought this would be a great opportunity to make my put my Spanish to use and actually be able to consider myself fluent. So I did open my search up to Spain, and I was able to find 3 other schools based on a couple main criteria. For me, it was really important that the curriculum was taught in English. A lot of schools, this is not surprising, are taught in the home country's language, just like it would be if you studied abroad in the United States. However, especially for the schools in Italy, I do have I do not speak Italian, is what I'm trying to say here. It is something I am trying to learn. I want to know basics when I get there so that I can communicate with people when I need help, and just to be courteous of their country. And then I'll also take an Italian class. There's a pretty basic one I found at both of the universities I found in Italy that I can take. And I do, like I said, know Spanish. However, learning all my classes in Spanish would be very difficult for me because I haven't spoken it in about a year. And so I wanted most of the curriculum to be taught in English so that I wasn't completely lost the whole time that I was studying abroad. And so that was a really big thing for me. Another was location and access to transportation, I guess. So a lot of the schools that were in Spain were in the south tip of Spain, which when looking, is absolutely beautiful, gorgeous climate. Like, I would love it there. But as I thought about the logistics of it more, I realized that yes, it's still easy to travel from there. Like they have train systems all over Europe, flights, all that kind of stuff, but it adds to my travel time, which shortens the amount of time I can take on my weekend trips, which will be when I'm doing most of my studying. And so I did end up picking a school that is located in the south of Spain, but because of its location, it did take a lower ranking on my list. And so that's location and ability to travel in and out of the country was the second one that was really important to me. Sorry, I have to look at my notes. Oh my gosh. And then also, like I said, I guess I already mentioned the size. I did not, there weren't a lot of, I was really looking for a school in Barcelona, Spain, because, you know, you just hear so much about Barcelona. But there weren't any through this program that I'm going through in Barcelona. And so, but a couple of my schools are just right outside of Barcelona. So it all worked out. Okay, so now that I've kind of explained my thought process behind this whole thing and how I got to where we are today, I thought I'd go through a little bit what the application process for me was on my specific website for my study abroad. Honestly, I thought it would be a lot more complex, but I also just think that to me this is such a big step that I feel like there should be so many hoops that I have to jump through, when really study abroad is very easy to do in the sense of applying, actually getting through it, and all the steps in between from what I've researched is not so easy. But taking the steps to study abroad is easy because it's something they want you to be able to access. It's a great opportunity, especially if you're looking to travel. So yeah, so for my program, the first thing you did was you could just, you created a account on the website, which allowed you to access all the different schools and, like I said, read all about them like I did. And then after that, once you had your schools, you created a application. So on my application, I had, let me see, what is it? 6 different, what would it be, tabs, 6 different sections of the application that I had to complete. The first was making my program list, so ranking my schools so that they knew where I wanted to be. So for me, I'm so sorry if this is where you're from or this is your school and I butcher the name. I promise I will have it down by the end of this series. But for me, that is, number 1 is the school in Milan that I told you guys about, the Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. So Milan, Italy for that one. My second one is in Tarragona, Spain, which is still coastal Spain, but up on the northern end of the country. And it is the Universitat Rovira. So yeah. And then my third one is in Almeria, Spain, which is that southern tip of Spain, coastally, that I was talking about earlier. And that would just be the Universidad de Almeria. So sorry. And then finally, my fourth option is back in Italy, in Pavia, Italy, and it is the Università degli Studi di Pavia. So as you can tell, I do not speak Italian, and I am going to have to work on that if I end up in one of my Italian universities. So the next section was academics that you had to fill out, and the academic side was submitting your transcripts to make sure that you are eligible to study abroad, getting a reference from a teacher who has had you in multiple classes or an advisor. And then also for my schools in Spain, they required a language reference from a teacher who had you for multiple years in a row, teaching you the language, to make sure that you had a basic understanding of the language, I assume. So that was all I had to upload for my academic side of it. And the next was a document section. This is where I uploaded a copy of my passport and then also just entered all of the information that's on my passport, you know, name, birthday, address, where my passport is registered, that basic kind of stuff. And then the eligibility, once your references were sent in by your teachers, you had to confirm your eligibility, and they'd kind of run through the references and make sure that you did qualify. So that was just a simple click of the button, and then here you also entered your GPA and your school's information. And then the last 2 parts were the biography and other. And so here I again had to go through and put out my name, you know, like my gender, my race, basic, like, you know, hospital questionnaire type questions that you fill out at doctor's offices and things like that. And then the other was just asking some other basic questions about you so that you were prepared, so they were prepared with where to place you for your study abroad. And that was it. I could submit it after that. It didn't take me very long to complete the actual application itself. I would say that I worked on it for about a week, maybe for like 10 minutes at a time, just here and there. The longest part for me was waiting on those teacher references because I did do this right at the beginning of the school year, so they were pretty busy. But yeah, it was a pretty simple process. It was very well worded, well put. I never was confused, like never felt like I was taking the wrong steps. And so that was something that I really appreciated from my program, the ISEP program. If you are interested in finding a study abroad through your school, you can see if this is something they offer. But yeah, so that was the application process for me. Our priority deadline for the application is not until September 15th, but my advisor that I received through this program did advise me that if I was wanting to find out where I was going to be placed sooner than October, the sooner I submitted my application, I would most likely find out where I was going to be placed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I submitted this a couple days ago, and so in 2 to 3 weeks, I will find out which of my 4 schools I got, or if they are unable to place me in one of my schools, they will come back with some similar options that they think I'd like based on the schools I picked, and I can either choose that, or if I decide I can go the direct route through this program where I pay the other university's tuition, because that deadline is not until October. So I can decide that if maybe, you know, I don't get one of my top 4 schools and I don't like the schools they offer me, maybe that's when I decide I'm just going to do a lot of extra fundraising and work a little bit harder to raise that money, and I'm going to do the direct for my top school, or really any of my schools, honestly. So yeah, that is how the application process works for my program. I hope that this video was helpful to anyone that is looking into studying abroad. I know that one of the first things I did when I was trying to find research and answers to my questions on my study abroad was I went to social media, TikTok and YouTube especially, since they are video platforms, and that's kind of where you get people sitting down and answering questions. And I was really shocked at how small the content was for study abroad. I feel like this is something a lot of people do and that a lot of people have questions for, and so some of these videos may seem really pointless to people, but I think I've decided I'm just going to make whatever I was looking for when I was looking things up on YouTube and TikTok that I wasn't able to find myself. So that's kind of where this came from. You know, I never found anyone that explained like how they picked where they're going. It's like the first video they do on their study abroad is always like, oh, first day, first week, packing. Never like, how did you get there? Like, why did you pick your school? You know, what influenced your decisions, how that process looked. And so that's kind of what I wanted to focus on, is making more of those videos, kind of behind the scenes type stuff, I guess you could say. So a lot of them will be sit down and talks like this, but I also, once I go abroad, plan to do a lot of vlogging just to show the experience and have something to look back on and remember the experience for myself as well. Go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe. You will probably not see the next video for the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even further. I'm planning on doing something to announce where I'm going and kind of like an update, just the steps that I've taken after that. And then I'll do probably a packing video. And so for the next couple months, these videos will be really sporadic, but